Hi guys, and welcome to Freckle Finance. Today I'm going to do a little bit of a different video. My most popular video is on budgeting on minimum wage, and I want to talk to you guys about what it was like when I lived on minimum wage, the struggles I had, and just, how I survived and paid my bills and didn't go into further debt. So, like most university and college students, I had a lot of struggles financially, being able to pay my bills. It was my choice to live away from my parents. I did have the option to go to a university in the town I grew up in, but I wanted my independence, and boy did I pay for it. So minimum wage was less than it is now. It was probably about $10.25 at the final time that I left my minimum wage job. So I was living on about $14.50 a month. I did pick up a second job in the summer, even though I was still taking some classes for university in the summer. So I did sometimes make more income than that, but the entire time I was making minimum wage. So basically at the time, my entire life was going to school, working, and the very occasional time I got to hang out with my now husband. So didn't have much spare time, obviously, because being in school and working is very time consuming, as well as also picking up the second job. And at one point I did work 2 jobs during the school year, but I didn't work full-time at either of them. I worked at a fast food restaurant, and I also nannied. Now the nannying job to me felt a little easier because I would go there for like 5 o'clock in the morning and the kids would be asleep for a few hours, so there wasn't as much stress as there was with the fast food job. So I haven't really decided yet if I regret having a car during all of this time. It did help me with the nannying job, which was, as I said, generally much less stressful. However, kids can sometimes be very stressful, so that wasn't entirely always the case. But I did have a car, and by the end of my university career, I did have my car paid off, but I was making car payments. I by no means had a large car payment. It was about $175 a month. My insurance was about $175, and I don't imagine I spent more than about $100 a month on gas, so I really wasn't spending that much on my car. There was a point in time where I couldn't really afford to pay all of my bills and be able to feed myself, so I did stop driving my car. I called the insurance company. I just got the theft and auto. I think it was $15 a month, and I didn't have to pay for gas. And it was a struggle. I basically I had my car sitting in a driveway and I couldn't drive it because I couldn't pay my bills. But that's a sacrifice you have to make if you don't want to get yourself into a lot more trouble in the future. The apartment that I lived in, yeah, it was a safe area. There was no issues like that, but I was freezing cold in the winter. I don't even think my room had proper heat ventilation type of thing. It was hot in the summer too. I had a fan. They actually had to give me a space heater because I would actually wake up freezing cold in the middle of the night. Now, my landlord was not like a horrible person or anything like that. They were fine. They just lived out of town and they weren't really able to come and do the proper maintenance that was needed. And they did provide me with a space heater, and they paid for all that, and electricity costs were included. So they were paying the high electricity costs for the space heater in my room. So I'm definitely not bad talking my landlords, but it was a very run down, not super run down, but it was fairly bad. We didn't have a handle to open up the oven. Not all of our elements on the stove worked. And yeah, so it was all right. It served its function, and that's what I needed at the time. I needed a place that I could pay for, that I could sleep, and serve its function. It was actually quite a large room, and I actually had this, I thought it was really cool. I had a stained glass window at the top. It was an older home. I think it was considered historical. So I'm not sure what exactly they were even able to change on the house because it did have a historical status. And I had 8 other roommates, and that got crazy at times too. I never really got into arguments with my roommates. I kind of kept my own room. I also kept most of my stuff in my room because, when you have 8 other roommates, you can't guarantee that your stuff's not going to be stolen. So I did have stuff in the common fridge, but plates and bowls and pots and pans would go missing, so I pretty much kept all my stuff in my room. But yes, there were some fights, not physical, but definitely there was some drama and also some years the place I lived in was a party house. So that was fun too, because I had to get up bright and early to go to work to be able to pay my bills, and they were up till 4 or 5 in the morning partying, playing beer pong and all that stuff. But I was so excited when I got to leave that place. When I first graduated, I moved in with my dad, and I was pretty happy to do that because I was so tired of living in this place where I had trouble keeping myself warm at night. I remember having to go under my sheets, just back to the cold thing, because that was literally the worst part of this place. I had to go under my sheets, and I would have to take like 15 minutes just to like trap the warmth under my sheets to be able to get comfortable to go to sleep. As for food, if I could go to a friend's house and eat, I would. I definitely never took any of my roommates' food or anything like that, but I ate a lot of peanut butter on toast. I did buy frozen vegetables so I could at least eat some healthy food, but a lot of peanut butter and toast, hot dogs, pierogies, definitely by no means super tasty food or healthy food. At that point, I didn't really feel that I had the option to eat healthy, so I just didn't really try. I just tried to eat and just eat to fill myself, although I was overweight, so I imagine I could have eaten less. But, you know, you don't have many other pleasures when you're working in school and basically have no free time or money. As for extra things like clothes, shoes, haircuts, all that stuff, I pretty much never bought any of it, and if I did, I would try hard to go to a thrift store. And I remember going to Value Village one time, and they had a 50% off sale, and I still couldn't afford the clothes. Actually, this really sweet lady, I've never met her again. It was one of those like, oh my God, people can actually be really great people. She handed me a $5 bill, and I was able to buy some clothes, and I just remember being like, wow, I really look like I don't have money because I'm basically being given charity at a thrift store. But I am very thankful because I actually needed some clothes. Other than that, I did get gift cards to clothing stores for my birthday and Christmas, and I didn't get presents. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to buy some of those things, and I would usually get my hair cut every now and then, and usually at a first choice haircutters or one of those cheaper, hair salons. As for giving people presents and gifts and such like that, I just didn't really do that. I gave more time, like, oh, I'll clean your house, I'll do this chore for you. I would try to buy something small just so there was a gift. But even when I first started dating my husband, I gave him like a coupon book like, oh, I'll make you dinner, which, by the way, I was really terrible at making food, especially since I didn't have money to buy any good foods. I didn't have herbs and spices or anything like that back then. But, it's the thought that counts. I would, coupon for you get to pick the movie tonight type of thing too. So if you are someone on a very tight budget, I definitely recommend doing that as gifts because people loved it, and I've still tried to incorporate that a bit now because I think I've gotten more love for those gifts than just purchasing people something from a store. So as for going to events and movies and etc., I pretty much did not do that. I did go to a few movies with my husband back then. He pretty much always paid because if he said I had to pay, I'd be like, oh, I don't really want to go. I didn't, he didn't know the situation when we first started dating and all that stuff, and he eventually did find out more and more, and he kept having me go over to his house more to eat dinner so that I could eat there and, help pay for food when we went out. We never went anywhere fancy anyways. We were total typical college people. We just ate at fast food pretty much though. And basically, I remember my spending money would be maybe $15 a month. And when I say spending money, obviously I'm not buying anything, I'm barely buying food, I'm not buying clothes, so my spending money was like $15 of literally extra on top of my bills that I had every month, and that was so difficult, and I usually bought food with it. Just like I have a problem now with buying extra food, I did it back then. Usually it would be because I was at work and I just would buy something at 50% off there, which I'm not sure, that probably wasn't cheaper than buying groceries, but at least it gave me some variety in my very non-diverse diet back then. And then I also, with this money, had to save for my tuition. So the portion of the tuition I had to pay was about $2,500 every year. So I had to come up with that money every year, and a lot of that was saved during the summer because I was able to pick up a second job. And there was one point where I was working 60 hours a week between two jobs. I don't think I took a class back then, or maybe I did do that while I was nannying as well. But that's what you gotta do. And I was that debt averse even back then that I would suck it up and work so many hours. And the savings rate in order to have this money for tuition that I had to save every month, if you were to take it over a month, would have been about 15% of my income, my very small, limited income. So I think in a video like this, where I'm kind of reminiscing and thinking back on it, oh, it doesn't feel, you know, I'm getting all these like smiles and memories and jokes and stuff, but my mental health was not very good back then. And I so understand anyone else who is suffering while they have to work minimum wage just to get by. I was a ball of stress. I pretty much cried every day because I just had so much stress having to do exams and working. And at some points I was a supervisor and I had to supervise people, and literally, yeah, I struggled a lot. And even once I started having more money and a regular job and everything, I even struggled with spending. I had crazy spending guilt, but I was just so, I was an emotional kind of wreck back then. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is going to have that type of perspective and be unhappy when they're working minimum wage. They might not. They may have different circumstances that make things easier. Obviously, owning a car, I made it much more difficult for myself to be able to pay bills. But the reality for me is that I really struggled a lot emotionally. Because I was also in school, I didn't socialize very much. I pretty much only hung out with my husband and his family on rare occasions. I didn't even really talk to my roommates because I just wanted to be alone whenever I was home because I was just so busy, or because I had to study, which I did slack off with a lot. But I truly understand the struggle that many people who do not make very much income and are really tight and under the poverty line and all that, I understand the struggle. I've been through it. I cried a lot of the way through it. I feel fortunate and lucky that I am not in that situation anymore, and it took a lot of hard work, and some of it was luck. I'll be honest with that. I don't think that I am extra special because I've been able to get out of it, but it has given me a very different perspective and appreciation for those who are struggling, even from a standpoint of being able to have enough money to invest 50% of my income every month. So I understand the hardship, and if any of you are watching and you're struggling, trust me, I get it. It may take a lot of hard work, a lot of keeping your mental health in check and just telling yourself you can do it even when you don't even believe yourself. But if you are struggling, people have been living on minimum wage for a while and been able to get out of that. Now, you may never become a multi-millionaire. You may never be super wealthy. You could be, though. I mean, rags to riches stories exist. And I should say that the period of time that I worked on minimum wage was the entire 5 years of my university life. And so 5 years is a really long time, and you do end up feeling like you're trapped and you're never going to have all these things. And how do your friends have all these nice things? And wouldn't it be great if I could just afford to kind of buy what I want with groceries, or be able to not have to shop at a thrift store? Now, I still choose to shop at thrift stores now, but when you're forced to, you know, because you don't really have any other options, yeah, it's not the greatest feeling in the world. So that's my video on what it was like to live on minimum wage. It is a longer video, but I wanted to be true and honest, and I wanted to be able to give a true perspective in one video on what it was like for me. Please click subscribe. I do upload videos regularly, and hopefully I can keep you motivated for your future. And everyone has the option to have financial success. You just have to be able to use your tools and your knowledge in order to get there. As well, you can also like me on Facebook. And have a good day. Bye.